What's up, chat? It's your boy Hobo Drobo back with some more Kingdom Rush battles, and today we're going to be jumping right into Onslaught to see if Hacksaw can match up against the legendary dragons. Now, I did end up trying different decks, but for this matchup I went with the old reliable, putting the Barbarians in the back with the Burberry on, and I actually ended up switching out Royal Archers for Musketeer because I think that extra range helps a lot on this snowy map. But I feel like I'm pushing the limits of what I can do with Hacksaw on this map, because in these beginning rounds, you have those guys that are on the snowboards, and that makes it so you just have to put Hacksaw down there and take care of those, because he won't be able to deal with the high HP targets if those guys are just going through. And those flying ice mites do a sneaky job of taking out my barbarians with their death damage, so I think that the Musketeer helps a lot here with taking those guys out. What I think is really important to notice about this matchup is that we were sending each other almost the exact same boosters, and so you'll see that the troops that we had to deal with was mainly the Troll Zerker and the Golems getting sent both of our ways, so it felt like a fair matchup outside of the hero differential. Escalt is clearly the better hero here, but I really wanted to test the limits of Hacksaw and see if I could come up with a dub. But I did lose to Beresad 5 times before this match, and I found that I was able to get to the boss wave, although once I got to the boss wave, there just wasn't enough I could do to be able to kill the boss before my opponent did, and I think that's really where the dragons shine, because they're able to just get so much damage without having to really be targeted by anything. However, I was using a different strategy in a lot of those matches, trying to force Arcane and Dwarf to work together like I was saying in my previous video, but I just wasn't able to get that synergy with Hacksaw going very well, and I think if I used Allura or Dieridae, it would have been better, and so I'll definitely revisit that in the future. So after I lost a bunch of times to Beresad, I ended up just throwing the Dwarven Artillery back in my deck because I was really trying to find a strategy that wasn't using that, but it's just too strong to not use against dragons. And it's important to note that while dragons are very strong from a damage perspective, they also have a glaring weakness, and that's that they have no armor. So I think that if you're using that tar missile from the artillery, or using the musketeer shots to get damage onto those dragons, and you can somehow get them off the board, it can actually give you an upper advantage when you're not using a dragon. And you'll see during this match that this one went back and forth the entire time. There was moments where I thought I was going to lose, and there was moments where I thought I was going to win, and I think that's what made this match very interesting overall. But while we're in the middle rounds of this match, I wanted to bring something up that I found on the Discord, and somebody had a screenshot of an account where they had a level 15 Ashbite, as well as a bunch of level 12, 13, and 14 cards, and while that account may have not been legit and it could have been like an insider account, I do think that it's important to note the disparity between a fresh account and a maxed account. And so I think the main problem with that is that it's going to take players so long to get things, especially if the progression doesn't speed up, because even compared to games like Clash Royale, and people complain about that game a lot when it comes to progression, this one's even worse. And like I said in my last video, I don't think that slow progression is a bad thing, but I do think that they need to be careful with not making it too difficult for players. So I do have faith that Ironhide will find a fix to this problem, although it's going to be difficult because they can't punish the players that do have high level cards already. But something I think that they need to nerf for sure is the amount of levels that boosters have based on your account, because 19 levels just feels like way too much of a gap, and I think they should shorten it to at least 10, and I think that would make it more fair for the long run, especially when players start getting those really high level accounts. Because right now it's not that big of an issue considering everyone is a pretty low level unless they're super pay to win. We'll see. I don't want to get too much into balance issues because I think that the next patch will show a lot of where Ironhide is headed in the future. The next topic I wanted to mention though was the poll that I put out yesterday on my channel, and that was to see how many people have Beresad compared to not. And I thought what was really interesting is that there was about an equal amount of players that have Beresad free to play as there were pay to win, and there was about 40% of the people that had no dragon at all. So comment down below what deck you used to unlock Beresad. The match is starting to heat up though, so let's hop back into it. And you'll notice that I actually move Hacksaw from the bottom to the top, and I think that that's a really important microing in this strategy, is you need Hacksaw to start at the bottom and deal with a lot of those troops coming in those beginning rounds, because there's not much coming through that top wave. And then towards the later rounds, you start getting a lot more coming to you in those top waves, and so microing him back and forth is actually something that you have to do more often than not. But we're coming up on the 5th wave here, and this is where I really need to start getting those artilleries leveled up, because if I don't have that tar missile going to the other side, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep up with my opponent. You can see we actually lost that last round there, and so now it's really close, and if I don't get those tar missiles up, I won't be able to put out enough damage to be able to stall until the boss round. Because at this point, my thinking is that if I can get to the boss round, maybe I have a chance to win if I just spam him with tar missiles, and I actually get Escalt off of the board. I've seen time and time again how powerful this spell combo can be with stalling, so at this point it's really my only hope to beat the dragon. And I think overall I enjoy this map a little bit more than the grass one, just because there's a little bit more going on and that you have to pay attention to, compared to the grass map where it just feels a little bit too basic. Although that can also make it challenging in figuring out where to put your troops when, because that can really make or break a match. And another important thing to note here is that I only have one Archmage down, and that's because I really need all of those other tower spaces for the Dwarven artilleries so that I can get those tar missiles sent to the other side as much as possible. And I'm actually going to sell this musketeer here in a minute just so I can get another artillery down, but at least one Archmage is nice because I can start sending some other high HP troops to the other side. And while that Archmage isn't going to get a lot of damage down because of the spot it's in, I'm mainly just using it for its abilities, and so while I have the Barbarians in front of it and I have the artillery there, it does enough stalling to where the abilities can get off when I need them to, which gave us just enough wiggle room to sneak by into the boss round, and you'll see here this is going to be a really close one as well. And now at this point you can see I'm checking those artilleries 3 or 4 times because I'm just fiending to bomb my opponent. Truly an American strategy. And now I am a bit afraid of those arcane towers at the top one-shotting all of those high HP troops, but I'm thinking that if I can get those archmages to teleport the high HP troops to the other side, then maybe it can balance it out and I can sneak by with a win. And I actually ended up turning that musketeer into an archmage tower at the top there, because I wanted to try and get another dissipate upgrade, hopefully swarming him with even more enemies. That way Escalth just can't do enough damage to the boss while he has to deal with all those other troops swarming him. This is really where those tar bombs start to shine, because those barbarians on his side are going to be taken out so much that he actually has to pay attention to those little stragglers going by, and that makes it so that there's almost no damage going down on that Troll Zerker and the other troops that are going by, and that's giving me a lot of space to work with. And those axe throws are actually going to end up taking out his Escalth, allowing that Troll Zerker to escape, and so now it's tied 1-1, and I'm feeling it deep in my scrotum that we're going to pull out a win here. But I have to be really careful of that JT boss moving through, because they're about the same area where my opponent's is, and so now I have to put all of my spells and all of my stalling value into that boss to make sure that if he can't kill the boss, at least I'm going to win based on stalling potential. Unfortunately, I end up having to let Hacksaw die quite a few more times than I would like in this match, but that's just something that sometimes you have to do to get that maximum stalling potential, because at the end of the day, it wasn't about damage in this match, it was about who could keep JT from crossing that line. And this is where those Dwarven artilleries really come in clutch. They were able to stun his towers, and it was able to make it so that I could use my stalling ability to then just play the time game and end up coming up with a win in this match. And after losing to Beresad 5 times in a row with a multitude of different strategies, it was nice to finally get a win against a dragon using Hacksaw so I can continue to push my agenda. But as nice as wins are, it's always important to see how you can learn from your strategies, and so I think it's important to go back in time and see how I got to that point. And this is where I actually tried to use that Dwarf and Arcane strategy, still using Barbarians, but I was actually playing an avid viewer of the channel Tuxer here, so GG's man, this was a fun match. But I just want to go over this last boss wave here because I think it's the most important part, and what's very interesting is that I was able to get to the boss waves against dragons almost every single time. It just came down to I wasn't able to do enough damage, or I wasn't able to disrupt my opponent enough to actually come out on top. And so this is where I think if I was using Dierde to buff my towers overall with their damage output, I think that Arcane would get a lot more value, as well as that Dwarf. I feel like the Dwarf just wasn't getting enough value compared to what the artillery brings, especially because the artillery can also disrupt your opponent, which just makes it super strong overall. I like the strategy that Tuxer is using here though, using Glacial Druids and Musketeers, as well as that one Archmage. Again, like I was saying in my last match, I think just having one Archmage is sometimes all you need, because if you can stall, then it really just teleports enough to where you can sneak by, and then the rest of your towers can put out the damage that you need. But Tuxer hit me with the well played here, so GG's man, it was a fun match. But let's hop into one more match here. This was actually when I was using Arcane plus Glacial Druid, and I was hoping that maybe this strategy could allow me to put out more damage than my opponents with dragons, but that just wasn't the case, especially when my opponent has Archmages and they're sending more troops my way. I find that in the matches where it's Archmage versus Archmage, it actually just ends up being who can teleport more troops to the other side of the board, and that can get really annoying because then you have to sacrifice artillery space for Archmages, and it can really just be if you get lucky with the timing. And then sometimes I need to be careful with how I'm stalling things, or I need to let him go instead of stalling, and so it throws off my strategy a lot. And I did try Polymorph in this deck, but I think Lightning is better overall. But you can see Hacksaw just isn't enough to deal with that Troll Zerker, and it allows the Beresad on the other side to just get so much damage going down on that JT right away. And even though his Beresad goes down, I just have way too much HP remaining on my JT that there's almost nothing I can do, and it's low enough to the point where when his dragon comes back, it's going to kill the JT, and then there's nothing I can do about it. And so that's how a lot of these matches went. But if there's anything you guys think I could adjust here to put out more damage, you know, if I wasn't able to do the artillery strategy, let me know in the comments below. But other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.